Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another Magic the Gathering Top 10 list. And today we're going to look at the top 10 red cards we really would like to see reprinted in Eternal Masters. Now, you could probably guess this is part of a series, and we've already looked at the white, the blue, and the black top 10 list. Check those out on the channel. And over the coming days, we're going to look at the green. We'll have an episode on colorless, as well as a separate one on lands and one on multicolor as well. Hopefully build some excitement for Eternal Masters that will be coming out at the end of June. Now, having said that, if you haven't watched the other episodes, here's the criteria that we are looking at while coming up with this top 10 list. We looked at two things, basically. First off, the value of the cards on the secondary market, especially if something is really overvalued for what it is. Secondly, we looked at how frequently a card is played in a huge number of Eternal formats that are out there. So this includes things like Vintage, Legacy, Commander, Pauper, Tiny Leaders, Highlander, Cube, so on and so forth. Now, Modern, technically not an Eternal format. However, we do concede that a lot of times Modern does drive the value of certain cards, which does make them more prone to make it to the top 10 list. Also, all things being equal, if something also sees play in Modern, that's going to help its consideration as well. Now, reserve list cards, well, you're not going to see them here because, as we know, unfortunately, there is a reserve list, and those cards are not going to be reprinted in Eternal Masters. But that's a topic for another day. So let's jump into the top 10. We're going to begin with some honorable mentions. Now, red's an interesting color compared to some of the ones we've already done before. A lot of people consider red a good budget option, especially in Eternal formats. And you will find that you're going to see some cards that are a lot easier to afford than maybe some of its brothers and sisters that we saw in previous top 10 lists. And that's okay. It doesn't mean we still don't want to see them reprinted so that more copies get out there for players, and also that they can be part of a really fun limited environment in Eternal Masters. So you see on your screen here just a few honorable mentions. So first you see on your left Pyroblast, which is a classic sideboard card in a lot of formats, but also gets main deck sometimes in Painter's Servant strategies. You have a couple anti-artifact technology pieces with Ingot Chewer and Ancient Grunge, which see a lot of play. And finally, Sudden Demise, which is maybe a little bit underprinted at this point. Still very affordable though, and it's a pretty good red board sweep. Now, having mentioned those, let's move on to the actual top 10 with number 10, Lightning Bolt. Now, we chose the 4th edition Lightning Bolt here because it's still very affordable. You can get these for about $2, and you can still get that awesome Christopher Rush art on the card. But unless you're trying to get like a playset of Alpha Lightning Bolts, you can get these relatively cheap. They've been printed many times. However, they still make the list. We'd like to see them printed again, let more players have the joy of playing with Lightning Bolt, and also make it part of this limited scene. I think this would be awesome for drafts and for sealed for Eternal Masters. Number 9 is Shattering Spree, and you can still get this for under $5, but it's a great piece of sideboard tech, especially to deal with a lot of artifacts. I also see this card show up in a number of cubes and Commander as well. Number 8, Past in Flames. In Past in Flames, it's a mythic from the original Innistrad. It's still going to run you about $11 for a copy, and it's a pretty big piece of a lot of Storm builds. Now, granted, it sees play in Modern Storm, but also sees play in Legacy Storm, which is why it makes the list. Number 7, Eidolon of the Great Revel, and this is another card that's recently broke $10. Now, granted, if it wasn't for its involvement in Modern, it probably would be less than $10. But it does see a lot of play in Legacy, and it would be nice to get some more copies out there, especially considering if this doesn't get a reprint, it's just going to continue to climb over the coming years. Number 6, Through the Breach. This is kind of your one-time sneak attack, and it's now valued at over $25, fetching about $26.62 for a copy, and that's really starting to get pretty high for this card for what it does, I think. Now, it does see play in a lot of different formats, and it'd be awesome to be able to get this price down maybe just a little bit and get some more copies out there for players that would like to include this perhaps in their cube or their Commander decks. Number 5, Magus of the Moon. And now, Magus of the Moon, obviously, it's Blood Moon on legs, and this still is going to cost you over $30 to pick up a copy of this. And if you're trying to pick up a play set, that can be pretty pricey pretty quick. Now, A lot of players prefer Blood Moon. It's harder to get rid of. However, some decks do like having Magus of the Moon because they can still get in there with damage with a card like this and can be more aggressive. So it does have its place for sure, even if you're not just looking for a quote-unquote budget version of Blood Moon. So again, be nice to see some more copies of this out there. Number 4, Goblin Guide. So Modern Masters 2015 was coming. Everybody was hoping to see a Goblin Guide reprint. Well, it didn't happen. Then, of course, Battle for Zendikar block was coming. Everyone was hoping to see a Goblin Guide reprint. It didn't happen. So here we are. Where are you, Goblin Guide? Hopefully you're in Eternal Masters. Because if you're not, you're going to go up in value quite a bit. So this card has been steadily increasing and will jump every time it doesn't get reprinted, when a lot of folks speculated that it will be reprinted. And it's over $40 right now. Again, picking up a playset can be very pricey. So hopefully it does show up. If not Eternal Masters, we see it real soon in either Conspiracy or Modern Masters in the future or something, but this desperately needs a reprint. Number 3, we talked about this earlier, but Blood Moon. And we're looking at the Chronicles version here because it's one of the more affordable versions. You can get it for just over $40. There's a lot of versions of Blood Moon, though. This thing's been printed a whole bunch of times. Just off the top of my head, I'm thinking Dark Chronicles. It showed up again 8th edition, 9th edition. It was in the first Modern Masters. So even though it's seen a lot of printings, price just keeps creeping up. Now again, a lot of this price is partially due to Modern. However, this is still a card that sees a lot of play in a lot of different formats. So let's keep printing them. There's definitely demand out there. Number 2, another card we spoke about earlier, Sneak Attack, and this will run you over $40. Now granted, it doesn't see as much play as some of the other cards on the list because you don't typically want to run 4 of Sneak Attack in your deck, and decks that run Sneak Attack are a little bit more niche in some ways. However, it's a big part of the Sneak and Show deck and Legacy, and hey, thing costs $42.74 right now, so it's a very pricey card for red. And hey, it's also a rare Urza Saga card that's not on the reserve list, so wow, why not reprint it? And number 1, of course, is Imperial Recruiter from Portal 3 Kingdoms. Now, we talked about this a little bit in the last couple episodes, but Portals 3 Kingdoms, very, very rare set. Wasn't released in the United States. Very hard to find these cards. Very hard to find English language versions of these cards. Because of their rarity, they are worth a lot of money, and in most cases a lot more than the actual card itself is probably worth as a component of the game. And this is a good example of that. This is a good card. It's a very fine card. It was an uncommon, but is it a $321.50 card? Probably not. Now, there's also a Judge's version out there that came out a couple of years ago that you can pick up for a little over $200, but still, that seems very pricey for what this card does. Now, some players feel like Imperial Recruiter doesn't need to be reprinted just simply because they don't feel that it sees enough play. However, I do contend that if there were more copies out there and they were more affordable, I think it would see a lot more play. Right now, if I'm going to buy into a Legacy deck, I'm probably going to find something else I can use aside from Imperial Recruiter, because there are other options out there. You know, I'm going to really put my money towards my mana base if I have to buy any dual lands, that type of thing, as opposed to setting money aside for Imperial Recruiters. This is a pretty big card in Painter Servant Grindstone style decks, and it's actually a very fun card, but there are some other cards that you can play in lieu of it if you didn't have it. Having said that, though, I think we need more copies of it out there just because let players play with this thing. It's a really awesome card, and it really fits well into not just the Painter strategy, but some other strategies out there as well. It's a tutor for red. Who doesn't like that? So obviously you're never going to see this printed in a standard set. Eternal Masters totally makes sense for a reprint like this. So that's our top 10, and it's very difficult to whittle these down to just 10 or 14 if you count the honorable mentions. But let me know what we missed. Let me know in the comments below what you'd like to see from Red and Eternal Masters. And until next time, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day.
Hey, thanks as always for watching. This video, like all my videos, was made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Even a donation of $1 helps me to keep growing this community and creating better quality videos for all of you. Check out our Patreon page for exclusive giveaways and future goals for the channel. If you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the MTG news, spoilers, set reviews, product openings, or finance videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a good day.